Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So this is going to be the guide for Final Winter WoW Quest. Now I did ask for your guys' help as well, suggesting me the options because we each have different approach how we completed this, and that is a good thing because it shows that there are plenty of options how you can approach this, how you can tackle this, also based on the amount of points exactly you need, because effectively each class you don't use nets you additional point as well as the completion and exploration. So you need to figure out exactly how many points you need to get, and then you can figure out the best approach. For most people, they have opted to go with the left side and the cosmic team, and that gets you almost all the points but like 2. And for majority, that is pretty much enough to get all the milestones if you got the extra points before. And if not, obviously, then we have alternate backup options. The easiest and cheesiest way, pretty much, to get all the points but 1 here would be with a Ronin stun lock, and then just use Venom for the Spider Ham, and you can use either Venom or, let's say, Gamora for that Hulkling. You need to bring in 2 7-stars, so that is something to keep in mind, because Ronin does not exist as a 7-star. You will need 2 7-star heroes, and that means you do require kind of like a 7-star Venom for this setup in particular. Now, it is also, to be fair, Venom can also do all the fights pretty much on this lane. It's just that Ronan completely cheeses the first 2. And this is by far, the most cost-effective way if you do have the needed champions. Gamora can be replaced by a different 7-star Cosmic, but Ronan and Venom here are kind of like the key aspects. And here, I will let this sheet be available to you guys as well, obviously, as you can figure out your own teams. Something to keep in mind again is obviously that there will be some fights where you can use pretty much any champions, and there will be some fights where you do kind of want to counter. Now with Aegon, it is a fight where you ideally do want to have a fairly solid counter to that fight. And then obviously Spider Ham, there are several approaches to that one. So I'm not gonna name every option for every single path. I'm gonna point out some excellent things that I have seen thus far. Obviously Loki, even a 2-star, can cheese that Aegon apparently. Symbiote Supreme Spider-Man is an absolute monster for Aegon and Hulkling fight as well, so if you have that ranked up, great. I personally used my Chavez for Aegon, Danny Moonstar, and Hulkling, so Chavez did tremendously well here. And I brought in skill champions for the Spider-Ham, which Killmonger for me did fantastic. Again, as I said, you can use all Cosmic team as well, and then just avoid Cosmics here. The one thing to point out is Nebula without Cosmic can be a bit tricky to deal with, but you can still use the Howard the Duck, OG Storm. Valkyrie can do Nebula decently well as well as Juggernaut too. These are again the options. If you do have like an absolute must easy cheese options, do leave them in comment section. I will add them. I will leave a link to this spreadsheet in the video description. And some key things to note. With Danny Moonstar, almost any champion can work unless you're using skill champions. Skill champions might struggle a bit more because she applies neuroshocks at the beginning of the special attack without even hitting you. So you probably want to avoid skill champions against Danny Moonstar. Against Hulkling, almost any champion can do that fight as well. If you hit block, it might be a bit slow. But any hero champion especially will have easier time because when you shoot the special in the block, you do stun the guy passively as well. And Hulkling in general is one of the easier fights. I do want to speak a little bit more about Spider-Ham fight because there are like 3 or 4 different approaches how you can do this fight and get it done. And just because I haven't listed too many champions here doesn't mean that there aren't far more options here. Because, number 1, your easiest option is to use one of these champions, pretty much. Because they shut down their weight, and you can just, not use special attacks, and you'll be perfectly fine, and then you don't need to worry about anything. Like Venom, he can't evade, dead. Killmonger, can't evade, dead. Right, Kate, use 1 special attack, then he can't wait, dead. Professor X, get your charges up, he won't be able to wait, dead. Quicksilver is also quite a great option for me because you don't need to use special attack to get the slow applied, and the whiplashes work perfectly fine. So, all of these options make this fight very trivial, where it's just basically don't get hit him, don't worry about evade at all, or hardly at all. and you'll be just fine. Then, most champions actually can do that fight if you work with a damage reflect node. You effectively need, I believe, 4 debuffs on you and then activate the correct special attack to reflect the damage back to Spider-Ham, especially if you go for level 3, because then the power stings are more potent and you can do a ton of damage like that. So you basically have to get the debuffs on you from Spider-Ham, so get him up, get his spider nonsense up, let him evade. Every time he's going to evade, you're going to get that power sting on you, plus the node's going to give you more power sting, and you're going to get the taunt. And then you activate special 3 when you have the special 3 icon on you, or corresponding special attack, and you will be reflecting the damage. And then pretty much any champion can do that fight. Moving further, you can also slow play it with vast majority of the champions, because there's absolutely nothing stopping you from parry stunning, and obviously Spider-Ham can't evade on the parry stun. So random champions like Cap America Infinity, for instance, just parry heavy. You'll do plenty of damage. You don't need to use special attacks. You don't need to play around the nodes. Just parry heavy, for instance, right? And you can use, other heavier line champions, like I'd imagine something like Warlock or something like, Archangel. Whichever champions, have decent damage and effects from heavy attacks will do the best, but you can also just do like parry medium light, parry medium light, parry medium light. You'll be fine if you can slow play that fight. The Spider-Ham is not the type of fight that will roadblock you. There are literally 3 to 4 different ways how you can approach it. And that is also the common consensus that the left side is the easier side for most part. This is the easier side, and if you get, remember, you don't get pretty much anything extra for exploring it aside from that extra point. So if you do get all your points and you had some spare ones from the robot objective or from the Deathless Gilly objective, then you might not need to get all the points, especially if you do this left side just using one single class. If you do want to or have to go do the right side, then again, right? There will be options. Right side does have some more specific fights. We still have Hulkling and Spider-Ham overlap, so I'm not going to talk about those fights at all. Obviously, Absorbing Man is one of the rougher fights. Shocker can do Absorbing Man quite well, and then largely you're going to be looking at the science class, obviously. Sandman, She-Hulk, Quicksilver, Titania, Hulk, Photon, Mr. Fantastic. I believe Shang-Chi was there. There are other champions that can kind of do that fight, especially if you're willing to drop like a revive or 2, because now he cannot regen past the point that at the start of the fight, so it is easier to manage. Now, here I don't know of any too great other options, or we didn't come up with any. And then there's Nebula. And Nebula, again, Howard the Duck is a very good non-cosmic class option, because that's what we talked about, where if you do the left side with like cosmics only or almost only cosmics, then on the right side you might have a bit harder time countering Nebula, because Hulkling, Surfer, Adam Warlock, Angela, a whole other bunch of cosmic champions would do great against Nebula, but you do want to have other class options. So I have heard it done with Shang-Chi, can be quite a long fight. I definitely know for a fact it can be done with Valkyrie, because I did it when the objectives came out. You just need to play very cautiously initially as you build your buffs up. And then obviously we have Shocker, again kind of slow playing it a bit. We have Howard the Duck, gets tons of buffs, perfectly fine. OG Storm should be able to cheese that fight completely, because every time you get Shock, you gain Promise effects, and those are buffs, and the auto block goes away. As well as Juggernaut, in theory, should be a very, very good option here, because you do get your 10 unstoppables, and you don't need to worry about auto block at all. And then it's pretty much the same list of champions again for Hulkling and Spider-Ham. Again, the most important things is you need to figure out how many points you need. Realize that you're getting 1 point for each class that you do not use. You get 1 point for completion and 1 point for exploration, right? If you need all of the maximum points, then that's what you go for. Additionally, I believe that Paragons, have 2 less objectives. So 2 of these classes do not matter that you can use anywhere. I don't remember exactly which those ones were, but I'm sure that you guys do know. And that will be pretty much it. As I said, I will leave a link to this spreadsheet in the description below. Hopefully it's helpful. Hopefully this video has been helpful, and if it has, hit that like button, sub button, all the good buttons. I'll catch you later. Bye-bye. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about the next one.